To move on slightly, just a little bit of different political news. This week, Rashida Tlaib soundly defeated her Democratic primary challenger by probably like 2 to 3 to 1. But I just like good for her. I'm very glad she handled that the primary challenger. A lot of people were definitely preying on her downfall or thought that she was the most vulnerable member of the squad. But I want to bring it up in the context of Ilhan Omar, who, as we've talked about on this show, is facing a primary challenge herself, which I think the election is coming up next week. And in that context, I would like to read for you guys, a few highlights from Tablet Magazine's profile of her opponent, Antone Melton-Meaux. And this is
this is written by a guy whose profile does.
Yes,
he went to one of our shows.
Armin Rosen. He was a guy who would he like get a scalp ticket for $250 to come see us in San Francisco and get COVID.
And then tried to imply that was the price because he just said I paid that much.
To steal from Brace here a bit. How are you going to write about being Jewish when you bought a $25 ticket for $250? How the fuck are you going to write about our lives?
Okay, so like, by the way, though, I mean, I know I've talked before about how The Atlantic is the worst magazine in America, but I swear to God, Tablet is number one with a bullet. They have been putting out some absolute fire lately, and I think like for a relatively smaller operation, they're fighting in a weight class that is truly impressive. Like Tablet's magazine's output has been incredible as of late, and this profile of Antone Melton-Meaux by Armin Rosen is so fucking good. So I'm just going to read a couple highlights here of the way that this is a sober journalistic account of a guy primarying a popular yet controversial congresswoman. So here he goes. I'm just going to jump in here. He says, her opponent, a 47-year-old lawyer, part-time pastor, and political neophyte named Antone Melton-Meaux, must now grapple with an emotional, historic moment, a telegenic political superstar, and a killer virus, and his job only keeps getting harder. It was clear from the moment I met him that Melton-Meaux has at least one quality that money can't buy. He was already seated at the conference table when I arrived at 8:52 a.m. on July 21st, meaning he had been at least 8 minutes early. He was dressed in a sharp blue blazer and an almost matching surgical mask that never came down from over his nose and mouth. Compared to his often thrillingly unpredictable opponent, Melton-Meaux is an image of modulation, always speaking at an ideal indoor volume and at a cadence that's never agitated or dull. This levelness is professionally honed. Melton-Meaux is a lawyer who leads a mediation services firm that he founded 7 years ago, a line of work that often requires him to sit down for days at a time with people who sometimes can't stand to be in the same room. He is slim, from what I could tell, almost completely fatless, in the way of someone who runs a lot. In the way of someone who runs a lot. Melton-Meaux recalled the recent...
There are so many ways to say that someone is thin.
He would die if he was
invented
fatless.
one.
Yeah.
Fatless.
Hey, at least it rolls off the tongue, right?
Absolutely. Look, fatless.
Rosen is an abominable writer. I love.
It's almost like he's not being paid for his writing prose ability.
No. I love how I love the extremely low bar for Melton-Meaux here. He wasn't late. He's not 400 pounds.
He's wearing clothes.
He uses an inside voice.
He never once screamed at me or started whispering. Something that Ilhan Omar is notorious for that. You can't meet her without her screaming or whispering at you. That's her main thing.
She's a close talker, we've experienced that ourselves, Yeah. But no, it's like all these totally banal observations about how impressive this guy is that he is able to sit down and talk for, upwards of 5 to 10 minutes at a time in a modular, evenly sort of tempered tone of voice. This is all just subtly implying that Ilhan Omar is like the opposite of that. Is that like, oh, she's huge. Go on a diet, honey. Bye-bye. No, but it goes on here. It says, Of course, we get to what's really going on here. It says that Israel has become a salient issue in this race during a national crisis around race and policing hints at the unhealthy obsession with the Jewish state in American politics, as well as Omar's talent for making that obsession work for her. Omar is on the wrong side of American public opinion on just about anything related to Israel, but she has made the world's most emotionally resonant international issue her own and can claim that any opposition is really about punishing her for daring to speak the truth or step out of line. Thus, a recent Omar campaign mailer asked, can we trust Antone Melton-Meaux's money, accusing him of being both in the pocket of Wall Street and the GOP, and noting contributions from 3 wealthy Jews, as well as Michael, a donor from Scarsdale, New York. However unsubtle the flyer's message, the suggestion that Melton-Meaux is a sleeper agent for a right-wing Jewish conspiracy is potentially damaging enough for him to have to respond. So, this is going on here. It's this idea that, this guy raised $3 million in, 2 months, and and we all know why, and when where that money's coming from, and whether it's Jewish organizations or lobbying groups that are doing it, and I'm sure that's probably the most of it. I mean, these are right-wing people that are funding this campaign because they hate Ilhan Omar for obvious reasons. And I just like the thing that Armin says about how America's unhealthy obsession with the Jewish state. Well, it's just I'd be fine losing that obsession with the Jewish state if we just stopped giving them billions of dollars every year and backing every fucking thing they do at the UN. We could be done with it. Everyone could stop caring about it tomorrow if we just treated them like any other country on the planet.
It's weird that I'm obsessed with this place who, in some states you have to sign a loyalty pledge to do business there. It's a very weird obsession to have. It's a weird obsession to have this fucking unchained mad dog that goes around its region doing fucking whatever at the behest of the worst leaders of our country. It's a weird thing to be obsessed with. This place that we give $3 billion every fucking year to, that gets first pass in all our military technology, that has a fucking nuke that we more or less gave to them. What a strange obsession to have. It's just a normal country. We have no special relationship with it.
No, it's certainly our relationship certainly does not.
You don't get
more dangerous.
You don't get drummed out of public life if you don't genuflect before it. That doesn't happen.
By the way, the GOP has currently introduced a piece of legislation that would make any criticism of Zionism essentially hate speech and remove First Amendment protections from it. So who has the unhealthy obsession here?
I hate this type of Zionist more than any other, who pretends this is just a normal country, especially those living in America, who pretends that America has this normal relationship with this normal country, and you're just anti-Semitic if you notice it. I much prefer the psychos who argue that Israel has this special destiny and this special status in the world, because at least they're honest about how they're framing this. It's just completely fucking dishonest. And also, if it is just a normal country, why do they need the $3 billion a year? Can we stop that?
Yep. No, but also this idea that sort of intoning darkly about where he's raising money from is that's in any other political issue. We understand how coordinated groups of people with a shared ideology and motivation and lots of money work together to enact a political agenda through politics. But as soon as it becomes Israel, it's just if you mention it in that context, then it begins you're talking about cabals and conspiracies and things like that, and money, and that's just tainted. So it's you have to take that completely off the table, which is no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it. This is a legitimate political issue that functions in the same way as anything else. Whether it's whether it's Exxon or pharmaceutical companies, we understand why they spend money on politicians. It's to enact it's to support an ideology and foreclose the possibility of them being regulated or having their money taken away or anything. And it's just when it comes to the Israel lobby, it's no fucking different. And nor should they get any special fucking consideration or treatment.
These are the same people that act like every fucking blue-haired, anxiety-ridden college student in America is in collusion against them to chain the discourse or make it so that Barry Weiss can't write for the New Yorker, that there's some grand conspiracy of fucking losers that is successfully stopping them at some end. It becomes ridiculous when you're talking about one wealthy nation, the defense industry, and their shared political interest here. A very obvious set of dots that you can connect.
And like, and again, like another obvious dot to connect is, why is this fucking Zero challenging her in the first place, and why does he have $3 million to do it? It's because of who Ilhan Omar is and the politics she represents, and that she's like probably one of the only people in the U.S. government at a national level who is even mildly critical of Israel. Just going on here, he says, far beyond individual magnetism or a talent for confrontation, Melton-Meaux's opponent possesses the rarest and most valuable quality in American politics, one that negative campaigning might actually magnify. She's famous. Since American politics is increasingly a battle of presentation and narrative, it's possible that no pitch, no matter how rational or brilliantly formulated, and no sum of money, whether raised in and out of state, can make up for a fame deficit. Melton-Meaux's earnestness outstrips his charisma, another potentially decisive point of contrast with Omar. Professionally, he is a mediator who is also a part-time pastor. He says he's still passably literate in biblical Hebrew, which he learned at the Union Theological Seminary in New York, a school he attended after several years of working as a lawyer. Melton-Meaux doesn't seem to be challenging Omar out of egotism, though it's also possible he's underrating the chances that a calculated egomania helped Omar become so formidable in such a short time. Whatever Omar's record, and no matter where the candidates stand on any issues, he will only win if voters decide they want someone who is close to the opposite of the unique type of political celebrity they chose to represent them the last time around. So yeah, Ilhan Omar is an ego-driven celebrity, and this guy makes up for his lack of charisma or point of view with just his earnestness and niceness.
And the fact that he used to work for the biggest union-busting law firm in Minnesota.
Which Armin Rosen doesn't mention that. And he just says,
what a shocker.
Weird that like the guy seeking a Democratic nomination's entire fucking paycheck depends on crushing unions. That's weird that he didn't mention that.
I mean, it's just like shit like this. It's like Ilhan Omar and like Talib are like basically like two people who have, in my opinion, a humane and rational criticism of the state of Israel and this, as far as this country's foreign policy goes. And that's it. That's it. There's nobody else in our fucking government who comes anywhere close to that. And like just that is something that cannot be countenanced. It's like when fucking Seth Rogen went on Marin and said that like, yeah, like a lot of the shit I learned about Zionism when I was a kid was a lie. Like there's people there and like, you know, yeah, we just kicked him out to start the country. And it's like it's kind of stupid like to care about Israel as a Jew if you live in, you know, Canada or America. They went fucking insane over that and fucking condemned. Like there was another insane article in Tablet, like just being like, oh, you know, work out your mommy and daddy issues elsewhere, American. You know, you don't know what Israel's like, or like, oh, like, why do you care so much about what our country does when you don't care what yours?
Keep to yourselves. Don't even print anything in fucking English. Don't come here then.
And then, of course, like Seth Rogen's parents got him to talk to like some Jewish organization and apologize for it. But it's just like, on its face, like, who gives a shit what Seth Rogen says to Marin? Or what? Oh, there's now two people in Congress who are like not 1,000% on board with just anything Israel does, and it's just like, nope, that's too far. Because I think they understand that, like, sure, public opinion polls will say like, oh yeah, I support Israel, but no one in this country really gives a shit. Certainly not now. No, and if you're younger, especially if you're Jewish, you've completely abandoned Israel. And I think that, like, you know, I think they feel that intensely. And that's why what accounts for how good Tablet has been recently is I think they understand that they still have all, you know, like the government and the state is firmly on their side, but they've lost. I mean, they're losing people who like either are actively hostile to the aims of Zionism or just simply don't give a shit anymore.
I mean,
well, that's the big problem for them.
They can do Israel and the Zionists. They can do what they've always done. There's endless supplies of losers throughout the world who, you know, to what you want, they're white, and you can import them. You've already done it with other countries. You can take in all the fat fucking evangelicals, the only people in this country who are actually going to give a shit about Israel, who will be left in 20 years. You can have them. Make it be what it was always supposed to be. At its heart, take them.
I mean, I would love that.
The Jerry Falwell Jr. and the other freaks on his boat. That's it. That's going to be it for American Zionism. That like, it's going to be that, and it's going to be like, you know, some fucking 75-year-old who's like never left, Scarsdale or the Upper East Side, who lives in a Covenant hovering wheelchair. That's it. Anyone below that age or who isn't an evangelical Christian correctly doesn't give a shit about this place.
Yeah. Like the fact
what
that
is it
Americans
doing
don't
for
care
our
about
lives
that,
in America?
the fact that people don't care about this stuff, it helps Israel in that we kind of allow our government to have this insane relationship with this country. But when people who are hostile to Israel are able to gain political power, mostly not by talking about Israel, but as their criticism is being part of a broader, critique of American foreign policy and also, capitalism. Your problem then is that same lack of investment means that you can't really ring the bell about their horrible anti-Zionism and have anybody really care.
Yeah.
Because it's like this thing goes on. It's like we still have pennies because of the copper lobby or whatever. If it was if there was anything reasonable out of it, we would say, what the fuck? Get rid of the penny. But nobody cares as much to get rid of the penny as the copper people care about keeping the penny. So we keep the penny. But if people show up and say, hey, you know what? Maybe our relationship with Israel is fucked. People are like, okay, that's interesting. They're not going to immediately freak out. And then these guys are left trying to build up some sort of hysteria that at least I think at the level of representatives, like where constituent service is more important, is very difficult. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to like nationalize anti-Semitism the way that they tried to do it. Or, I mean, obviously they wouldn't be able to do it as effectively as England because England is a horrible nightmare Terry Gilliam movie, but
worse people
to
than
try
Americans.
to nationalize like anti-Semitism as a topic, I suspect it would not be as successful.
No, it wouldn't.
No,
It really wouldn't.